Hi, everyone. Angela Alston with Angela Alston Astrology. Thanks for joining for another look at where the planets are this week. So let me share my screen. We're going to talk about some Astro highlights for October 15th through October 21st. Now, the week begins when I do my calculations here at 12:01 a.m. on Sunday and ends 11:59 p.m. on Saturday, and that is Pacific time. Before I get started, I want to invite you to my blog, which is over on my website, AngelaAlstonAstrology.com, and there is Welcome to the Libran table, astrological eating to align your microcosm with the macrocosm. And this month, there is also a narrative therapy activity, Libra, remembering who balances you. So that's over again at AngelaAlstonAstrology.com. And while I'm thinking of it, please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. It really helps me grow. Now let's look at where the planets are this week. The Sun is in Libra. And if you can believe it, this is the last full week of Libra season. The Sun moves into Scorpio next week. This week it starts at 21:40 and ends at 28:37. So the Sun will be crossing the South Node and moving into a square with Pluto towards the end of the week. The Moon is at 27:53, having just been the new moon during the eclipse yesterday. And it will end at 031 Aquarius. So we're going from new moon to first quarter moon. Mercury is in Libra, traveling from 1807 to 00 Scorpio. So the week ends with Mercury leaving Libra and entering something which is really quite different. And we'll talk a little bit about Mercury in Scorpio from both a natal and a traditional astrology perspective. Venus is in Virgo, where she is traditionally in her fall. Venus doesn't do so well in Virgo, traveling from 5 degrees 32 to 12 degrees 12. We do have a window of opportunity this week for all things Venusian, and we'll get into that in a little while. Mars, which does very well in Scorpio, but not so well when it is combust, will be traveling from 2 degrees 6 minutes to 6 degrees 52 minutes. Jupiter is in Taurus, re-traveling 1258 to 1207, still retrograde. Saturn is in Pisces, re-traveling 051 to 039, still retrograde, but starting to really slow down. Saturn will be stationing direct the first week of November. I believe it's November 4th. And I think we can all be happy about that. So 3 things to talk about this week. Mercury enters Scorpio. We're going to take a look at the dignity table, Ptolemy's dignity table. It's something that traditional astrologers and horary astrologers work with all the time. And then we're going to look at Mars and Mercury, both in trine to Saturn, which on paper sounds good, potentially, but it's not really that promising, and we'll talk about why. And then that Venusian window. Though Venus is in her fall, there is a moment of time, a period in time this week where she is going to be stronger than she has been, and then she will be during her entire tenure in Virgo. So I want you to be able to really tap into that creative potential. So Mercury enters Scorpio. Scorpio being fixed, water, the nocturnal home of Mars. But to get to Scorpio, Mercury goes through a bit of a journey. So on the 19th to the 20th, Mercury enters Cazimi. Cazimi means in the heart of the sun. It is when, and Mercury does this a couple times a year. Every planet does it as part of their synodic cycle. It's an incredibly important time. It's a time when that planet lets go of everything that has accumulated to it. It is refreshed, it is renewed, and it is reborn. And with Mercury, that can be letting go of a lot of thought patterns, belief systems that no longer serve you, that are ready to be shed. It's a time of real renewal. So it will have this cleansing period in the heart of the sun, move out of that directly into crossing the south node, squaring Pluto. So two very karmic and potentially difficult experiences. Mercury crossing the south node can bring people and messages back from the past, back in your life, into your consciousness. But keep in mind, this is a renewed Mercury, a cleansed Mercury. So you have the ability to make the choice to see these things differently, to react to them differently, and to have fresh eyes. And sometimes problems, puzzles, pain, it can really be mitigated by having a new frame of reference. So I hope that that is available to all of us this week. Now, Mercury will remain combust. Combust is within about 8 degrees, either direction of the sun. Combustion for a planet is incredibly debilitating. The sun just takes over. You know, the planet can't be seen. It's considered powerless. And that has a lot of implications for horary astrology, particularly. So Mercury is going to be combust in a very weakened state until November 1st. And it's going to be under the sun's beams. So combust is about 8 degrees. Under the sun's beams is about 17 degrees. And it's not until a planet is out from under the sun's beams can they really express themselves fully. The sun is that powerful, that overwhelming. And so Mercury remains under the beams until about November 18th. So even though Mercury is emerging as the evening star from this Cazimi, it really won't be able to express its full power until about a month from now. month and a little bit of change from today. So Mercury in Scorpio. Now there's a real difference, and I want to take a few minutes to talk about the difference between natal astrology and how planets manifest and show up in somebody's birth chart, you know, which is the mandala for when you're born, the C chart of possibility. In a birth chart, there are no good or bad placements. There are no good or bad aspects. It's not the case in traditional astrology. And as a horary astrologer, I work with traditional astrology, traditional dignity schemes, and traditional associations and rulerships. Now, this is a table of essential dignities of the planets according to Ptolemy. There's also one that was used by Dorotheus, but I use, and many traditional astrologers use, the Ptolemaic dignities. This came from skyscript.co.uk. Skyscript is an incredible resource for astrology. Everything to do with astrology, I can't recommend it highly enough. So when I say a planet doesn't have essential dignity in a certain placement, or it's weak in a certain placement, or when I cast a horary chart and see that the significator is in a sign where it doesn't have dignity, that means that it's not able to work with as much agency and strength as the planet might at first blush kind of promise. This is not the case with natal astrology. For a natal placement, for somebody who is born with Scorpio, a Scorpio Mercury, it's incredibly strong. Incredibly strong. I mean, the Scorpio Mercury's intellect is probing. It is deep, perceptive. It is, it's extraordinary. But in traditional astrology, and this is how we read it. So you look at the sign. Okay, I'm looking at Scorpio because that is the sign that Mercury is entering. We'll see that Mars is the nocturnal home, the nocturnal ruler of Mars. It is ruled in terms of triplicities by Mars. Mars rules the water triplicity. And then we have the terms. The first 0 to 6 is ruled by Mars. 601 to 1359 is ruled by Jupiter. 14 to 2059 is ruled by Venus. Here we have Mercury. It is showing up, that would be 2101 to 2659 is the term of Scorpio that Mercury rules. I won't read them all to you, but you'll see as you go through that Mercury doesn't show up anywhere else. So in a certain small band of degrees, Mercury has some essential dignity. It has one minor essential dignity. In all of the other degrees, it is not a triplicity ruler. It is not there. which means it's peregrine. So if you have Mercury as it's going to be next week in the first 6 degrees of Scorpio, it has no essential dignity at all in this sign. And so peregrine planets are planets with no essential dignity in a certain placement. They don't confer good things. When you're doing a horary chart, peregrine planets are erratic. They are wanderers. They answer to no man or to no thing. They don't have positive outcomes, generally speaking. It's not something that you want to see. It's considered a real debility. So that's sort of the difference between a natal placement where there is no good, bad, there's no value judgment, there's no strong, weak. It's really, you have to take the whole cloth, the whole tapestry, and understand that it's moving in time. Horary approaches the planets fundamentally differently. And this, the Ptolemaic dignities is a really important piece when you're evaluating the relative strengths or weaknesses of the significators for a question. There's other things. You have essential dignity, and that comes from this planet. But then you also have accidental fortitudes. An accidental fortitude for a planet is if they are showing up in a strong part of the chart. And that's really the angles. And the closer to the cusp of the angle, the stronger the position, the more they're able to act with agency. And then you also have where they are in their synodic cycle, in their relationship to the sun. And where they are in their synodic cycle, that will determine their speed. Speed has a lot to do with power in horary astrology. So with that in mind, let's talk about Mars and Mercury moving into trine with Saturn. In a natal chart, if you were to see Mars and Mercury in trine with Saturn, it tends to have a really positive reading to it. Trines almost always do. Whether they should or not is, another question. But they're of the nature of Venus. The energy, the idea is the energy flows smoothly between the two planets that are involved. However, in this upcoming week, I really would not expect or predict anything particularly positive coming from this trine. And here's why. Saturn is retrograde. A planet that's retrograde is debilitated. It tends to show its shadow side. And with Saturn, the greater malefic, it casts the biggest shadow of any of the planets in the top 7. It's also slowing down. So it's not moving, not that Saturn ever moves quickly, but within its own spectrum, it's starting to really slow down because it's going to be stationing direct on November 4th. So it's getting slow. It is not in its own rulership. Saturn rules Capricorn and Aquarius. It's strongest in those signs. So Saturn is in Pisces, which is ruled by Jupiter in the traditional schema, and Jupiter is retrograde. So you have a sort of a double retrogradation happening. You can't expect too much good funneling into that. And then on top of that, Mercury and Mars are both combust. And so we had just talked about how combustion weakens the agency of a planet. And so you have planets that are combust, having just dealt with the south node, just dealt with the eclipse, moving into a trine with a planet that is a malefic planet that's retrograde. It doesn't bode particularly well. However, this week does have a really nice, I don't want to call it silver lining, but it has something that's very pleasant, dealing with these squares to Pluto, crossing the south node, being combust. That's really heavy, and potentially, well, let's not talk about potentialities right now. With what's going on, I think it's really clear that what types of activities this sort of sky has engendered. But Venus. So Venus is in her fall in Virgo, and that again is going back to the dignity table. Not particularly strong in Virgo at all. It's one of the signs, one of the times of the year where Venus is actually the most challenged. However, even during this, there are kind of windows that open for Venusian things, Venusian activities. So if you're looking to put your art out there, if you're looking to have some progress on a relationship, if you're looking to ask for a raise, the time to do it opens up this week on October 20th at 1 p.m. Pacific time. And here is the chart for that, and I'll explain why it's nice. Here we have Venus up here in Virgo, and you see that she is part of a grand trine in Earth. The moon is at 10 degrees, 18. Venus here is 10 degrees, 47. And Jupiter is at 12 degrees. So when you are electing to do something, you want the planet that rules what you are doing to be hit by the moon, to have that be the moon's next aspect. And as we can see here with 10 degree 18 moon, the very next aspect, the next planet that the moon is going to hit is Venus. And then Venus is going to move, and she's already here in a 2 degree. She's going to move into exact trine with Jupiter. And then she's going on the 22nd to move into triplicity rulership. Well, she's already in triplicity rulership, but she's going to have 2 minor dignities. She's going to have her triplicity rulership and term rulership from about 8 o'clock at night on the 22nd. So this Venusian window opens on October 20th at 1 p.m. The moon will next hit Venus, which is really positive. It is a waxing moon. The moon isn't great in Capricorn, I'll be honest, but it is a grand Earth trine. And for Venus, during her time in Virgo, the 20th to the 24th is going to be as good as it gets. So that's kind of exciting. So recap, a lot's going on with Mercury this week. Transiting the South Node, going Cazimi, getting absolutely refreshed, letting go of what it has accumulated, and then emerging as the evening star, squaring Pluto, and entering Scorpio. Mars and Mercury are entering into a trine with Saturn, but it is a diminished thing. It is not something that, as a horary astrologer, I would expect any sort of positive outcomes. It is an energy channel that is opened, but what is sending the energy in both directions are debilitated, combust, retrograde planets. The bright side this week is the Venusian window of opportunity that opens up for fair Venus. Though she is in her fall, she is going to be in a grand Earth trine, practical, very helpful. And that lasts from about the 20th to the 24th. I hope that you're really able to tap into that for all things Venusian that you want to manifest in your life this week. Before I go, I want to remind you to please contact me with your relationship question. I've had a couple people do this over the past 2 weeks. Been a lot of fun. And subject podcast, and I will give you a free horary reading if you are willing to have your question be a part of my upcoming podcast. And email me, AngelaAlstonAstrology@gmail.com. Once again, please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel and hop over to my website. Thank you so much for joining, and I hope you have a wonderful week.